I put my hand and pushed it on the door. It felt spongy, but it wouldn't go through. And in my readings, I should have been able to do that. So all I said was, hand through door. Like the movie Ghost. Remember the movie Ghost?
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, my whole body floated through the door. I could see the molecular structure. Got to the other side. My shepherd was laying on the ground. And he got spooked because, they say dogs have different intuitions and sights.
Yeah, they would pick up on that, yeah.
He picked up. He must have saw me in whatever shape I was in. He went, and he ran away. And that's how I knew I was really out as well. So I floated through. I had fun for about 5 minutes.
This is MindBody Matters with Greg Rennie and Rob Reeford.
Welcome, listeners, to MindBody Matters. And this guy, you can't see him because we're just listening, right? This is an audio podcast, but this guy is a very good friend of mine. But I forget your name. What's the name?
What do you have? Sometimers or something, or what's going on there? You're remembering? You're forgetting your partner's name?
Bob Reeford.
That's it. Okay. Bob Reeford. Years ago, we used to have jingle singers sing our names, and it was supposed to be Rob Reeford, and right. It came back one day from the jingle singers down in Texas. They came back as Bob Reeford.
It did. Oh, there you go. See?
Yeah. So when you said Bob Reeford, it just took me back years ago when Jam Productions did my jingle, and it came back as Bob Reeford, and we couldn't use it. They had to go back and sing it all over again. So
see, it's been done. So I'm not that far off from your name of being Bob.
And the good thing about Bob spelled backwards is Bob.
Yes, easy.
Yeah.
Now, I had a very interesting phone call with our guest today, John Novello, and we talked about coincidences. This is an example, right? So I didn't know that there was a radio jingle that they screwed up your name and said Bob Reeford, but I just kind of pulled that out of my hat, thinking what's an odd way of saying your name, and Bob Reeford came out, and look, right, you had a story right there, and so is that coincidence that we had that? What do you think?
Who knows if it's coincidence? I mean, the guy we're going to bring on here, he's a very interesting person, and not to mention a Grammy Award winner too.
Yeah, he had 2 hits, jazz hits, B3 Soul and Good to Go. Now, we're jazz guy. We're not jazz guys, so I imagine the jazz community would know his name. Yeah. Now, the interesting thing is that he won a Grammy, and we're going to talk about what song that was concerning. Yeah. But he has moved into being an author as well as a jazz musician, and his book, Rob, is like #1 on Amazon for metaphysics. Metaphysics, okay. How can that happen? Right.
You go from musician, and now he's got a book on metaphysics. So,
yeah, but that's a huge jump. So it was a very interesting conversation, and in some ways we should have been recording it. But today's guest is John Novello. He reached out to us and had a chat with him. Had a chance to actually read part of his book. And the book that he's promoting and talking about today is The Invisible Architect, How to Design Your Perfect Life from Within. So that's the book that's a #1 seller. Now, the interesting thing is that we got in this conversation, which is pretty far out, but I was following him because, I'm a meditator. I'm pretty open-minded, as therapists go. He talked about the quantum intelligent field.
The quantum intelligent field.
Yeah. What would that mean to you?
Quantum.
Pretty funky.
Well, I remember I had a business once called Quantum Associates, and I to tell you the truth, I forget what the word quantum means, but it was a pretty deep word, so that's why we used it. Yeah. We used it, yeah.
Yeah, all I can think of is quantum, like quantum mechanics, like quantum physics,
or the quantum leap.
Quantum leap, right? Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
The actual term that he said to me was told to him by the quantum intelligent field. It said, "Look, when you write this book, and you have to write this book,
Mm-hmm.
You want to put in there The Invisible Architect. And so that name of the book actually came from the intelligence that he's talking about.
Ah, interesting.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to today's interview. An amazing man.
I think I have questions for myself as well as questions I've prepared that I think that the listeners would be very interested in hearing responses to. Our guest today in the studio is John Novello. We have John Novello in the studio today. Welcome, John.
Thank you for having me.
This is going to be an interesting interview because we had a conversation not too long ago, as I do these pre-interviews, and man, we probably should have got recording at that time.
Yeah, there was some good things that happened there, yeah.
I understand where you're coming from regarding your best-selling book. Listeners may know your name, not just from your book, but from your career as a musician. So I want to get to that and then also the content in the book. But in the show, we talk a lot about mind and body. And this is a great opportunity to talk about mind, body, spirit, because we don't often talk about the third one. With our show, we look at what the connection is between the mind and body. So my question for you, adding that third one, how's mind, body, and spirit connected? How would you answer that?
Yeah, from my empirical studies and research, this is an experiences, a human being is a complex spirit, mind, body. The reason why I say it in that order is because when we pass, when we transcend, when we die, whatever people's beliefs are, I don't want to step on them, but we are still who we are. Just like somebody driving a Ferrari picks up a new car, when he gets a new car, he's still the driver. He's still who he is. So spirit, mind, body, spirit is who we really are. Mind is the interface between the spirit and the body. And the body is the vehicle that the spirit uses in a lifetime to interact in the physical universe for spiritual growth and lessons. And so a lot of people mix up the mind and the brain. The brain, of course, is just really the command post of the body that correlates all the instructions and genetics and everything. So if the brain, of course, gets damaged, then the mind and the spirit can't work through the body as good. So spirit, mind, body is like a complex entity, but when the body dies and goes to dust, the spirit still lives on and carries memories and experience. So that's what a human being is as compared to a spirit disconnected from a body. And then when the spirit crosses over, I know there's lots of different beliefs and things like that, but we're not going to get into that. But from my experiences, I've done a lot of exploration in the area of out-of-body exploration. So I have 100% empirical evidence that I am me without my body, and my body is just an identity. And so when I've moved around, I know that I'm still me when I'm outside my body or whether I'm inside my body. So that's the relationship to spirit, mind, body, and a lot of problems get resolved because if you have problems physically, that usually means there's disharmony someplace. That disharmony can be within the body, but it also can be impinged upon by mental situations and by spiritual situations. And so to really holistically treat a human being, I think we have to be aware that a human being is a complex form of those three entities.
We've asked this question of other guests, but they come from the area of science and therapy. But I've been thinking a lot about this recently. Is what I understand is that we don't really know what mind is. We associate mind with the brain. And so my question for you is, where does the mind exist? Where's our mind?
Right. Well, of course, the body has a location in the physical universe and has coordinates, but the mind doesn't. Now, we could win Nobel Prizes if we could figure that out. But what's interesting is from a lot of past life regressions and hypnotherapy sessions that many, many authors and therapists have done and documented, when a spirit leaves, whether he has a near-death experience and then comes back, or whether he has an out-of-body experience that he's done purposely through various exercises, or whether the person dies and ascends to the afterlife, the experiences that he has during a lifetime go with him. And you go, well, wait a minute. The body's gone and the brain's not there, because science thinks everything's in the brain and the memory's in the brain. And you can sort of prove that, because if you have various problems with the brain, then memories can go away. However, how do we explain what I just talked about? So the mind somehow is connected spiritually. So the mind is not an inanimate physical object. It is some kind of, I hate to use the word digital because now I'm getting back into the physical universe, but it's some kind of energy. Like if let me back up. If God, for my term for God, the invisible architect, which is the name of my book, quantum intelligent energy field. Physicists have already figured out that everything is energy. There's no such thing as solid matter. Right. Everything is energy. And everything has a frequency. Your energy, I'm energy, this computer's energy. And the invisible architect is a quantum intelligent energy, as different from electricity, which is energy, but it's not intelligent. It has to be directed. It doesn't act on its own, right? But the invisible architect, God, Jesus, whatever your beliefs are, that particular energy is actually intelligent. And somehow the intelligence that goes with God that created the universe, since we are made in his image and likeness, we have the same quality and the same power. That's why we can manifest our own reality. So the mind, which is the interface between, that's what we're talking about, is part of the energy source. So it doesn't exist in a coordinate, but it is somehow congruent to and or attached to each one of us. So we're like little mini invisible architects that have this mind attached to us. And then when we pick up a body and use this vehicle, then we have to interface with the brain. Otherwise, the body doesn't get any instructions and doesn't work. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does.
The rest is above my pay grade.
Mine too. It also makes me think, because you mentioned about science, and I'm in no way a physics guy, but what I understand is that science is brushing up against these things, quantum mechanics, right? And do you think that we will get to a point that science will discover the spiritual life or true mind, true self?
Well, I think there are various physicists now that don't remember their names, that actually do now have confirmed with their experiments and research that they can only go so far with regular science and logic, and then they run into a dead end. Mm-hmm. And that dead end is, okay, there must, by deduction, there must be some kind of non-physical foci or universe or entity or intelligent energy that created all of this, because it's too, what's the word? It's too amazing. I mean, just the human body itself is a wonder in the physical universe. There's too many laws that are equilibrium and amazing that it didn't have a creator. I always say, hey, does a book write itself? Does a computer program itself? Does a song write itself? No, there was some causation there. So they have got back to the causation point, and unless they jump from the physical world and go into the spiritual world, which I call quantum spirituality, they're not going to get any further. So the physicists that actually believe in God, just to use a real mundane phrase, they're going to have to coexist science and spirituality in order to get into that area. And it's funny because in the Eastern world, it's very commonplace Everybody understands that exists. Everybody believes in and has experienced past lives and crossing over to the other side. And there's many, many hypnotherapists, past life regressionists have proven there are past lives with various people that have memories, and even therapists that use past life therapy to handle problems in this life by going back into past lives. So I think everybody's on the verge of this discovery. Who does it and how it happens, I'm not sure, but I'm very excited about it.
We had a guest not too long ago. I think I sent you the link to the episode, but he says the same thing at the very end, is that we're on a cusp of a collective realization. Fascinating stuff. As a musician, well, I got a question regarding music, but first, because, like I said, some listeners may know you from your work as a jazz musician. Tell us a bit about your career, because this is very interesting that, a jazz musician has, written a book about something so heady.
Believe me, I think it's crazy every time I think about it, especially when my book came an Amazon bestseller in one of the categories of metaphysics.
Right.
And I had all my musician friends calling me up going, what the hell are you doing? I said, I don't know. I really don't know. It just happened. It channeled. So that's another story.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. You won a Grammy. And tell us a bit about the album in which you won a Grammy. Right.
Well, personally, for my own music, I have not won a Grammy, but I was a musical director in 1978. For the band called A Taste of Honey. And
I'm aware. Yeah, I'm sure Rob is too, yeah.
Yeah, we had a hit record called Get Down Boogie Yogi Yogi. Believe me, I used to get razzed about it because I'm a jazz fusion guy. And here I am with winning awards and on tour making all kinds of money as a musical director for a disco band. Go figure. That's almost like the kiss of death in the jazz world. John sold out. You know what I mean? And I laughed all the way to the bank. I didn't care. I met a lot of people. And then I went from that band to Donna Summer. She was the disco queen in 78 to 85. And we became good friends. And, but my route there was very blessed and spiritual because at 3 years old, I heard this inner voice and pointed to the TV and I was pointing to an accordion player on the Lawrence Welk show. Now, in my mind, at 3 years old, I only reacted to the keyboard. I saw a keyboard. Okay. I wasn't really trying to tell my parents I wanted to play the accordion, but I grew up in an Italian Catholic family, and that's what I ended up doing. And I quickly got good at it, and I realized later that I was a past life musician, which is another story unto itself. But then I switched over to the piano and the organ, and it was very natural for me. I had some natural talent, but I also really had to work hard. I practiced very hard. And my career really started as I had a band, got in a band, was the sort of leader of that band, and I had the hottest band in the area of Pennsylvania, New York, and Ohio. And we were playing at El Ramada Inn, and a famous producer was driving from New York to Cleveland. He lived in Cleveland, and it was a big snowstorm. And to me, the invisible architect orchestrates things. I think free will and destiny somehow coexist. So the snowstorm made him get off the freeway and go to the Ramada Inn where my band was playing. Now, you could call that luck. You could call that
serendipity,
orchestration,
or whatever,
serendipity, whatever you want. Sure. The owner said, hey, John, you might as well go home. There's going to be nobody coming. It's a very bad blizzard. So we were about ready to go home, and a big bus pulls up. And he goes, hey, we've got some clients that are checking into the hotel, so go up and do another set. So we went and do another set. And this particular producer was very famous at the time. And he decided to come down and have a drink before he went to bed, luckily for me. Mm-hmm. And he heard the band, and he thought, wow, this is an incredible band. I wonder if they're already signed to a record deal. So he comes up to me after I was done playing and figured I was the leader and asked me that question. I said, no, we're not. And he goes, well, you are now. That's how quick it was. And 3 weeks later, we got a record contract on MGM Mainline Records and put out a record. And it went number 3 in the area, in the East Coast area, tri-state area of New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio. And that launched my career into music and sort of validated to me that this was what I wanted to do for a living. And I was only 17 or 18, about to go to college, and I was majoring in, of all things, mathematics and physics. But I, on the side, played music. But very quickly, the band fell apart because the singer got drafted and joined the Army, and that was a big loss. But that was a catalyst for me to go, oh, my God, I just experienced what the music world could really be. Yeah. So I went and studied, went to Berklee School of Music, Berklee College of Music in Boston, and then went out to California, and quote unquote, that was the beginning of my career, and met various people, got into the Taste of Honey with the Grammy, and Mark Isham was another Grammy in that band, and then Donna Summer, and all these people, which eventually led me during my studies to do my own band, and met Billy Sheehan and started Niacin and the John Novello project, and now I do my own music. That's how the whole career started, with the 3-year-old higher self voice pointing to the TV. Go figure.
Wow. Now, you had a jazz hit.
Yes, I've got several top 10 hits, too. Yeah.
Right.
Good to Go was number 1.
Good to Go, right. I read that.
On the Billboard Jazz Chart, and so was B3 Soul album was number 1. And then I had a couple other ones that were in the top 5, in the top 10 in the music world of my own stuff. And so, I've been very blessed and very eclectic background. And so when I woke up one day 4 years ago, that voice, which is explained in my book, The Invisible Architect, is almost like an autobiography, and how I was blessed with the voice, and then realized after a while that it wasn't just my higher self, because there's a difference between your higher self and God. Your higher self is the oversoul, who you really are, that stays in the spiritual world. And every time you reincarnate, you send a spark of yourself into the new incarnation. And so you can speak to your higher self and gain a lot of knowledge that way. And you also can speak directly to the invisible architect, who speaks through you. But not everybody is able to do that easily, because they're distracted with normal life trials and tribulations and survival. And so you have to learn. That's why meditation is very important. You have to learn how to go into the silence and tune in to that higher frequency in order to receive those communications, which is what my book does, which is why the secondary title of the book is How to Design Your Perfect Life from Within. And that means we go within, we raise our frequency, tap into that energy, hook up not only to our higher selves on the in the afterworld, but also hook up directly to the invisible architect. And that is the power. And that power will help us design our perfect lives.
Can you share the experience when that voice that you mentioned when you're 3 years old really came into play in your life when your wife was diagnosed with cancer?
Yeah, well, I had already been interacting, which I call spiritual mechanics, which is the definition of how to interact and distribute that power, how to interact with that power. Because a lot of people try the law of attraction, it doesn't work, and they don't understand why it doesn't work. But because they've been taught wrong, and it's very narcissistic. I am healthy. I am well. I am great. I is a very narcissistic viewpoint. It's really the architect is the real power, and you have to learn how to interact with it, which is what I do when I do one-on-one mentoring with people.
You're mentoring, yeah. We'll get to that, yeah.
Yeah, but my wife got diagnosed with breast cancer, and we started the old fight with breast cancer going all over the world. Now, by that time, I had already interacted with and was interacting with that higher self voice. And what happened was she knew she wasn't going to make it after we, for 2 years, tried our best. but I always believe there's a reason for everything. And so it was just her time to get her reward and cross over, and I was going to have to go through that loss and growth that results from loss. But right before she passed, she was in sort of the winding down coma hospice situation in my home, and she was outside her body, which is a very common occurrence with people that are about to transition. And they usually can see their body and see the room and things like that. Anyway, I was sitting there holding her hand, and all of a sudden, helping her transition, she was breathing slowly and more slowly. And all of a sudden, I got this communication, John, it's me. Oh my God, I'm free. There's no more cancer where I am. I can't believe it. Thank you so much for helping me this lifetime. And everything is going to be fine. We'll see each other soon. It was so amazing. Wow. It was like she was standing right next to me, talking to me, giving me her revelation, which elevated me to a higher frequency. And then shortly thereafter, she took her last breath and she moved onward. And of course, then I went into my grief and the funeral and all that stuff. But later on, I did a celebration of her life. But that made me get obsessed with wanting to understand more about the spirituality of spirit, mind, body. So I started reading all these books on out-of-body explorations, and then I started trying to do it. And eventually, 2 or 3 months later, after struggling for 3 months and I could never get outside my body, I was starting to doubt whether it could be true.
I'm curious what you tried. Like, what did you use to try to get an OBE, an out-of-body experience?
Right. It's exactly what I'm going to tell you now. So there's many, many books out. One of them was William Buhlman, Adventures Beyond the Body. And he has many, many techniques in there. And one of them is to understand there is a separation between spirit and body. Mind is part of spirit in a sense. Like I said, it travels with it. And so in order to do that, when you go to sleep, you get into the hypnagogic state, which is the state right before you fall asleep. So, and the best way to get into it from my experience is when you wake up, because you're already in it. But I was trying it before I went to bed, and I'd lay down there. He talks about going into the silence and closing your eyes and wearing a mask if you need to, and just relaxing the body, and then giving yourself commands like, now I have an out-of-body experience, which is an affirmation. As you get into the hypnagogic state, now you're telling yourself that your mind is going to stay awake. This is key, but the body is going to be allowed to go to sleep. Normally, when you go to sleep, your body goes to sleep and the spirit shuts down as well, and then you're totally asleep. We all leave our bodies at night for therapeutic reasons, but don't remember.
No kidding.
Yes, it's part of the therapy of the spirit, mind, body. That's another.
Is that what we dream? Because this is happening?
Dreams are interaction. Dreams are the way for the mind to relax and go through various experiences to chill. But there's an actual you that if you can practice the technique, and the first time it happened, let me tell you the first time it happened, I was trying like crazy for 2 months almost, and I was doing it. I was in the hypnagogic state, and I started to, and I have a mask on, I started to see what they call eidectic images. You know, your eyes are closed. I had a mask on, but why am I starting to see very graphic colors? I didn't understand it. Thought they were just dreams, right? But what happened was I was struggling and I still didn't get outside my body. And some of these symptoms that the author said should happen, I didn't experience. So I all of a sudden felt like I had to go to the bathroom, right? So what do I normally do when I go to the bathroom? I just roll to the right, my feet hit the floor, and I walk over to the bathroom. This time I rolled to the right, thought all of us were, meaning the body, mind, and spirit. But when I landed on my feet, the ground felt a little spongy.
Oh, my God.
And I went, that's what I said. I said, oh, my God. And I looked at my hand, and it looked like my body, but it was a little thin. I could almost see through it. They call that the etheric body. Huh. And I looked at it too long and it started to melt, which started to scare me. But then I realized from all my studies, I went, wow, maybe I'm actually out and I don't know it. And the true test would be if I turn around and see my body laying in the bed, right? So I really reluctantly did it. I got to tell you, I was a little nervous. And I turned around and I looked and I saw John Novello laying in bed on his back. And I went, oh my God, it's true. We really are spiritual beings separate from our body. I should be able to roam around now because I'd studied all these books. So I decided to float. And the moment I gave myself the command, I levitated. I looked at the body. It looked like a human body, but it was very light and you could almost see through it, which is a common description, by the way. And then I floated over to the door, and my German Shepherd's on the other side, and I didn't like to have him in my room at night because he would bother me and wake me up. And I thought I was going to try to open the door with my hand, and I remember, wait a minute, I should be able to go through this door. I'm not making this up now. And I put my hand and pushed it on the door. It felt spongy, but it wouldn't go through. And in my readings, I should have been able to do that. So all I said was, hand through door. Gave myself a command. Next thing you know, it's like the movie Ghost. Remember the movie Ghost?
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, my whole body floated through the door. I could see the molecular structure of the door.
Wow.
Because in the astral world, there's an typical version of every inanimate object in the astral world, which makes it exist in the physical. So when I went through the door, I saw the molecular structure, got to the other side, my shepherd was laying on the ground, and he got spooked because, you know, they say dogs have different intuitions and sights.
Yeah, they would pick up on that, yeah.
He picked up, he must have saw me in whatever shape I was in. He went, and he ran away. And that's how I knew I was really out as well. So I floated through. I had fun for about 5 minutes, and I was so much enjoying myself. I got to be honest with you, and I'm not suicidal. I didn't ever care if I was ever going to come back, especially since I'd lost my loved one. I was thinking, yeah, can I really cross all the way over? Heck with this universe. I want to see my wife.
Right.
And next thing I know, boom, like a big swoosh, and I'm right back into my body, wide awake. My eyes, I took the mask off, and I went, did that just happen? Was that a dream? And I opened the door really quick, and my shepherd wasn't where he was. He looked all panicked and freaked out. And I'm in my regular body now, and now I remembered I had to go to the bathroom because that was the original catalyst that started the whole thing. Make a long story short, I started practicing every night doing this and got very, very expert at going outside the body, traveling around in the astral world, and eventually met my wife on the other side.
Oh, really?
Because I traveled to the other side by command. This is documented in very, very many books. And guess what happened? When I saw her, she was on a staircase. It was a beautiful staircase. And I saw her and I went, Gloria. And she looked down at me. John, what are you doing here? And I thought she'd be glad to see me.
Yeah.
Although she sort of was, it was more like, you can't be here. This is not your time. How did you get here? And I researched that and found out that when you get out of the body, you can ask to go see your loved ones and you can sometimes meet them. But in general, they're mostly all going to go, no, you shouldn't be here because it's not your time. When it's your time, then it's really when you go out of body. And according to a lot of research, the silver cord that connects you to your body sort of gets cut and you move to the other side. And that happened with my second wife because my second wife passed away 3 years ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But I visited her as well. Some people think I'm crazy, and I think they're crazy too because they just don't know. They'll find out when it's time for them to go that they'll realize that. Yeah.
So I kind of understand this, but maybe you can explain the difference between an out-of-body experience, which they call OBEs. There's lots of stuff on the internet about that, and NDEs, near-death experiences.
Well, an out-of-body experience has got nothing to do with almost dying.
So they're different experiences for people?
Well, when you're out of body, it's more self-determined. You're trying to go out of body. A near-death experience is exactly that. You've almost died, or, you've had an operation or a medical disease or a traffic accident or something like that. And when it's time for you to go, you would then go from that accident. But if it wasn't your time, an accident or the disease itself produced an out-of-body experience because you almost died. And so you're looking at your body, and you may travel to the astral world or some other dimension and then come back, and you may have had revelations, you may have had beings talk to you, or whatever the case is, but then you're back in your body. So they're very similar, but one was prompted or catalyzed by a situation where you almost died. And a lot of times when people have near-death experiences, since they aren't very well trained in the area, they don't even know what is going on. What is, and then when they're back in their body, if they have a memory, and not everybody does, they realize what had happened, where an OBE is mostly a self-determined therapeutical exercise where you're literally trying to go outside your body, and you do, has nothing to do with death. That's the only difference.
One question before we go to your book, I want to talk about The Invisible Architect. We had a guest on the show that talked a lot about not his experiences, but he was a radio guy. He interviewed a lot of people regarding NDEs, and he said a common thread that is just, you can't explain it, a common thread in all these stories is there's a point at which there's a life review. And I'm wondering if you're familiar with that, and how do you see that? Like, what exactly is that? Is that what we experience? The people talk about, I almost died in this car accident. My life flashed in front of me. Is that the same thing? Or?
Well, not everybody has a life review. Sometimes they have a near-death experience and they move over to the afterlife dimension and see various things and have little revelations that they're not their body, which is a pretty big revelation unto itself. And a lot of people then are not afraid of death anymore when that happens. When you cross over for real, the actual sequence is normally to make you feel good. Loved ones greet you. That's what normally happens.
I've heard this.
And that's very therapeutic. And depending on the nature of your death, it's very helpful. And then apparently you meet with spirit guides or a spirit guide or masters and teachers or ascended entities in order to review your life. You remember the movie Defending Your Life? Albert Brooks, was it?
And yes.
He crossed over with Meryl Streep, and he had an attorney that was defending his life, and if they were going to determine whether he was going to heaven on this bus or hell. And they had, every day they met in court on the other side, and they viewed various aspects of his life, good parts and bad parts, and he had to explain himself, and the attorney helped him. Apparently, each lifetime, when you incarnate, you pre-script, they call it pre-soul agreements, the script that you're going to experience in order to grow. And so the life review means you're reviewing things that you did that caused problems to other people, things that you did that weren't that great, things that you did that were great. And that review is a learning experience. So then you accumulate knowledge and experience. And at some point, especially in the Eastern philosophy, after enough lifetimes, you may be able to not have to reincarnate anymore. Remember the movie Groundhog Day?
Yes.
What did Bill Murray go through? That's a harmonic of reincarnation, because he was this narcissistic, selfish, condescending guy. And he woke up, and then when he went to sleep, he woke up at the same day every day. Mm-hmm. And after thousands and thousands of days, he learned to be a more loving being. And eventually he fell in love. And then he woke up, and it was actually the next day he was allowed to move on. That's sort of a similar situation of reincarnation. You keep reincarnating each lifetime to learn experiences. and then you do a life review. Now, a lot of times when people have a near-death experience, that ends up happening. Now, why that was allowed to happen with that person probably was to help him be a better person in the life that he was at, because almost everybody that has a near-death experience that then does a life review is a completely changed person. They just had so many revelations that they now aren't the same person they are. They're a way better person. So that's been my experience. And I have, when my second wife passed, I ended up having a harmonic of a review, a life review, while I was awake. I literally was crying in utter grief, thought I was literally going to pass out because my heart was racing, and I closed my eyes, and I didn't have a near-death experience, but all of a sudden I was shown my whole life, and I started to go into various things that I went, oh man, I kind of regret doing that, I regret doing that, and I sort of came out of the grief, and I was a better person already. But that's not a near-death experience life review. That was, to me, a blessing that I was given through the amazing amount of grief that I was going through. It was like almost an epileptic seizure.
And I imagine a catalyst, right?
Yes, a very, very big catalyst, exactly. Well, when I wrote the first book, my first book, I have another book out called The Song That Never Ended, which was I wrote after my first wife passed away, and explained those experiences. And then the second book, The Invisible Architect, which we're about to get into, I wrote 4 years ago. My wife was still alive when I wrote that book, and that was sort of a channeled book. I woke up one day not intending to write that book. I'm still a jazz musician, and I got that voice that I had been interacting with said, it's time for you to pay it forward. And just like you and I talk, I have been talking to this voice, this inner voice, for many, many years. And I went, what do you mean it's time to pay it forward? And all your interactions with me that have helped your success in the music biz, in the music world, in your career, I want you to put those down in the book and share it with others so they can help create their better lives. And I went, oh, really? Because I know how much work a book is. And that's how the inception or the genesis of writing The Invisible Architect.
Let's talk about the voice, the communication that you've had and still have.
I'd be upset if it went away.
Wow. Okay. So it's part of your life.
Yeah.
Being a psychotherapist, and also imagine, people listening are going, anytime in past history someone said that they heard a voice,
they put them to death, right?
They put them to death or stoned them. They burned them at the stake
or told them they were a witch or whatever. Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
So far, nobody's come to my front door. I'm safe. But now that we're doing this much detail on your podcast, if somebody comes to my door, I'm going to sue you, okay?
I won't be found. I'll be somewhere else. They won't find me. So, and also in your book, you talk about angels. So, how can we understand that someone would have a communication that is considered in the psychiatric world as a psychosis and, auditory hallucination, and angels? How do you explain that to someone that, would say, hey, this is crazy?
Well, the difference is very, very obvious to me, and that is the psychosis type of voice is never, in my experience, and you tell me since you do more of that therapy, it's never what I call pro-survival and constructive. It drives people crazy.
Yeah, often persecutory.
Yeah, that's not what an angel does, which is a benign being. That's not what the invisible architect, which is God, does, or your higher self. It's very easy to discern the differences because they're very positive. They're very helpful. You may not even believe them when they happen. I remember one time, a simple example of a daily use of my voice could be I'm driving down the freeway. Driving down the road, about to get on the freeway, and there's a ramp to get on. You can't see the freeway. You got to go up the ramp. And my voice goes, no, don't get on it. There's too much traffic. You'll be stuck in it.
Oh, my God.
When this happened a long time ago, when I was just getting used to interacting with my voice, I went, it's Sunday afternoon. There's no traffic. So I disobeyed it and drove up the ramp. And sure enough, I got up there and it was like a parking lot. And I went, oh, my God.
Someone would say that would be a hunch or an intuition. And
exactly.
Pass it off, right?
But that's what we call those things because we don't know what they are. Does that really describe what they are? Intuition, and what is intuition and what is a hunch, if not that inner voice speaking to you that you don't understand yet? The ultimate example is the following. This is the most amazing story. When I re-met my second wife, who has passed 20 years ago, I thought about her. It was only a year after my first wife passed, and I thought of her, and I went, I wonder why I'm thinking about my first girlfriend when she was 15. Probably something's going to happen regarding that. And I hadn't seen her in 36 years, and I'm just getting over the grief of my first wife. All of a sudden, I get up one day, 2 weeks after that little premonition, and I have an email. Hey, John, it's Barb Simpson. Do you remember me? That was the name of my first girlfriend. And I smiled. I wasn't shocked because I've already been interacting with this voice for years, right?
You got a heads up on this, yeah.
So I sent her an email back. I said, wow, haven't seen you in 36 years. So good to hook up again. And we started to talk eventually. And it was a breath of fresh air. I could tell later in hindsight, she was sent back to me. That was part of our script this lifetime. She was going to help me recover because she was a breath of fresh air. And I was just getting over the loss of my first wife. And she wanted to come and see me. She was an interior designer, so she booked a flight. And about 7 days, I can't remember how many days before the flight, my voice said, John, tell Barb to change her flight. That's not a good day for her to fly. Something's not right.
Wow.
And I went, really? And now I always obeyed it at this point. I was finally trained to always trust. And if some people want to call it intuition, fine. Whether it's intuition, an angel, the invisible architect itself, the higher self, I don't really care to discuss or debate that. All I know is that I trusted it. So I called her up. I said, look, we haven't talked in 36 years. You're going to think this is a bunch of woo-woo or I got cold feet. But do me a favor, change your flight. She goes, why? I said, no, I don't have cold feet. There's nothing going on that day except I have a premonition that's not a good day for you to fly. She goes, oh. She told her girlfriend, her mother, and everybody was saying, oh, he's probably got booty call, and he's got another girlfriend, and he's a jazz musician, and you know, all the... Yeah. And I had to yell at her. So she changed the flight to Friday because it was Tuesday. I woke up that morning, Tuesday at 10:30, which back east means it's 1:30, and she lived back east. And I had 40 messages on my answer machine, those analog answer machines with the light blinking, you know?
Yeah,
when I went to bed, there was 0. I went, what the heck is going on? I started listening to them. 9/11. She was on the flight that left Dulles that was going out to L.A. I think it's flight 77. And that was the flight. Had I not listened to my voice, I would have lost my potential second wife. Now, if that wasn't a reason for me to realize that was a sign, we eventually got married and had 20 years together. So that was orchestrated. That was the architect, my higher self, telling me, and I agreed to it. And I've had many of those. I've got 20 of those in my book, Actual Stories. That was probably the most amazing of them all.
My God, I'm speechless. I watched another podcast. I heard part of the story, but I had no idea that was the flight that she was booked on. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's right in the front of my book. If you read the story, it's right in the first page of the book before the foreword. It says incredible, invisible architect story.
Can you share a bit about from the book what the 3 fundamentals are?
The reason why I did the book, like I said, was to pay it forward. And the architect wanted me to help other people create better lives. And the overall major goal is to help raise the frequency of the planet. Because if we take a peek around, we're not doing too good as a planet. There's all kinds of problems. Politically, we're out of control. Economically, wars, and you name it, right? In order to change that around, short of an alien visitation, like, that would maybe make it worse, who knows, one by one, each person has to become more spiritually evolved and more loving and more honest. And when that happens one-on-one, then that starts creating a better environment, and it spreads like a disease in a good way, right? So my overall goal that I was told to do when I wrote the book was to help people one-on-one create better lives by using the fundamentals that I learned through my interaction with the architect.
Oh, okay. Yeah, pass it on. Okay, yeah.
I'm passing it on, paying it forward. Yeah. And so when I wrote the book, it was almost like automatic writing from all the books that I've read, my own studies, and the intuition and channeling that was occurring, because the architect said, I will help you. That's what this book is all about. When I was done with the book, to be honest with you, I wasn't even going to release it. I was like a jazz musician going, what did I write this book for? This is crazy.
Were you concerned about your career and judgment?
A little bit, but I didn't care. But then I was coaxed, because I get pretty much reprimanded from the architect when I go off the script. I got to tell you, sounds crazy.
He's very firm and stern.
Yeah, we got to be careful here. We don't know what the architect's pronouns are. You just said he. We don't want to get in trouble with.
Interesting. Yeah, I did say he.
You did say he. Somebody could get in trouble. So whether it's a he or a she, or we don't know what the pronouns are. That's why I tend to say the architect is the quantum intelligent energy field, which has created us and permeates everything. So anyway, it kept approaching me, and I started writing the book, and it wanted the subtitle to be called How to Design Your Perfect Life from Within. My subtitle was How to Design a Better Life, right? Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah.
The Invisible Architect, How to Design a Better Life. I thought that was realistic. It didn't like that. This intelligent energy wanted this exact phrase, how to design it perfectly. Yeah, you're the first one that said that, and I like that. Yeah, spiritual editor in the sky, right?
Yeah.
But what happened was this intelligent energy said, no, I'm known as all loving, all perfect, all knowledge, omniscient, everything. So you can't achieve perfection unless you go for perfection. So the secondary title, subtitle, has got to be How to Design a Perfect Life and from Within, because the kingdom of God is from within. So once the book got done, it became a bestseller. I started getting people all over the world emailing me, hey, do you do any life coaching? They called it life coaching, right? In the area of the fundamentals of your book. And I wasn't doing any of that. I've done one-on-one coaching musically, teaching, but not. And I said, well, I don't want to do that. Jesus, I want to be known as that now in my twilight years. But I was pretty much reprimanded that I need to do that. It was almost like an order. So I started doing it. And I went, wow, this is really fun. And I'm really good at it naturally. So what I do now when I one-on-one mentor people is I take part one of my mentoring course is I take them through the 17 chapters of the book, which I call cognitions. Cognition 1, 2, 3, etc., and make sure they understand the fundamentals of manifestation. I'm going to answer your question in a minute about the 3 steps. And once they understand the fundamentals of manifestation, some people call the law of attraction. I don't like to use that. The fundamentals of manifesting. Then part 2 of my mentor program is we work together. We pick areas of each person's life that are not ideal. Everybody's got to, whether it's lack of money, abundance, relationship problems, discipline problems, whatever, right? And we apply those fundamentals until they start getting traction in reversing that dwindling spiral or that situation that has been with them too long that's not working. And because it's not working, there's always a why. And the why comes in 3 forms: be, do, and have. Most people don't realize they're doing this backwards. Have, do, be. If I had a lot of money and connections, I could do A, B, and C and be this. That's backwards. Anybody that's successful, whether they know it or not, they become or be, some people call it visualization, what they're trying to achieve. And when you thoroughly become one with what you're trying to achieve, that's the be. Then here's the catch. The do is your decisions that move you towards the be, which means they have to be correct, on purpose, pro-survival. But the part two of the be is you have to invite this quantum intelligent energy into your life, the invisible architect, as I refer to it, because it's the real power. You aren't the power. You don't design your life. The architect orchestrates everything and designs your life, but it gave us free will, so it doesn't bypass us. So we have to invite it into our lives and have faith that it will do what it can do. Then the have starts manifesting. So there's your be, do, have. Be, do, A and B of the do is your decisions, your discipline, and then you inviting that in your life. And a lot of people will just call that faith. Faith is a commodity. It's very, very powerful. They say it can move mountains. The architect will not jump into your life unless you believe in the architect and invite it into your life. Now, I don't want to get into religion because this isn't religion to me. This is spiritual mechanics. So be, do, have.
Spiritual mechanics, because you're not a religious person, right?
No, I grew up as an Italian Catholic, but eventually moved into more what I call not organized religion, got into spirituality.
I'm a recovering Catholic myself, actually.
No, let's not get into trouble here. But now here's the last part of the manifestation process. Here's where everybody falls down. Even if you've got these 3 points understood and applied, thoughts create reality. Beliefs create reality. If you aren't disciplined and you can't control your thoughts in a laser precise way, the law of attraction or the law of cause and effect works against you. Example, let's say you're near a city, you want to take a ride down to the village and get some deli food. So you wave a cab, you get in. The cab driver goes, where to? And you go, village, Carnegie Deli, which closed down, by the way, but that's a good example. So he puts the thing down, starts driving, and you say, I'm not so sure. I'm not feeling that good. Maybe I should go back to the hotel. He doesn't care. Okay. Turns around. And you keep doing that. What's that guy going to do after a while? He's going to throw you out of the cab because you don't know what the hell you're doing, right? You're not focused. You can't go from A to B. Well, that's how the law of attraction works. If your desire gets alloyed constantly, then you'll never achieve that have. So B, and then the B gets alloyed. So if you go, I'm going to go on stage tonight and I'm going to sing, and I'm going to sing my best because you're a singer. Right before you go on stage, you're going, oh, geez, I hope I really do good because I'm feeling a little nervous and, oh, my God, I just made a mistake. And, well, that's all kinds of self-doubt that's creeping into that first original thought. The original thought is, I'm a good singer. I'm going to do good tonight. Right. So we have to learn how to create a pure be, like I am healthy or I am abundantly wealthy. In other words, you state your be as already achieved, right? Not as a goal. A goal is, I want to be healthy. Well, that already admits you're not healthy, right?
Yeah.
This is key.
Yeah.
You've got time into it. We don't want time into these affirmations, these postulates. We want to get time out of it. So you state the desire, the wish as already fulfilled. That's the be. Then the do is you invite the architect into your life and have faith that it will help you with your support, achieve the have. And the other key is you give advanced gratitude to God, to the architect, to the universe, for achieving what you have not yet achieved in the physical universe. That's your faith. So you got be, do, have, and thank you, architect, for helping me achieve my new career. the pushback happens. Here's the pushback. What does the mind do when you say that? You're in denial. It hasn't been achieved yet. You are broke. Look at your bank account. In other words,
this can't happen. Yeah.
This can't happen. This won't happen. You've been broke all your life. Well, you're in denial. Well, now you're doing what? You're consulting the physical universe for a license to survive. That's not how it works. In order to change reality, you have to change your reality and thank the universe in advance for having achieved it. That is the law of causation, the law of attraction. Now you have to keep it there. So what can you do to keep it there if the doubt or the contra thoughts come in? And that's where the law of thought substitution comes in. This is an actual physics thing that translates into spirituality. In the physics world, most people understand that no two objects can occupy the same space at the same time.
Right.
There is an exception to that in quantum physics, but that's particle physics.
Yeah.
So
I'm aware.
In the spiritual world, no two thoughts can simultaneously occupy the same space and be thought of at the same time. They can only be sequential.
Oh.
So if you have a counter thought to your goal, your wish that you want to be fulfilled, the moment you recognize, and this is the key, the counter thought, you have to substitute the ideal original thought or any positive thought. So I am wealthy. And next thing you know, you're out in the physical universe and you open your door in the mailbox, you've got a past due bill. So now the physical universe says, yeah, you're never going to be wealthy, you idiot. Look at that. You can't even pay your bill. The moment that happens, if you agree with it, you're then taking the wind out of your sails. You need to immediately substitute the original thought and obliterate that thought. No, I am wealthy. That's not denial. That's a restatement of the ideal scene you're trying to achieve, because if you can keep it here, pure and laser precise, the architect, remember, is part of the equation. It sees you have faith in this intelligent energy, and it will keep working towards that ideal. But the moment you go, yeah, I don't know what I was thinking, the architect goes, oh, he doesn't know what he was thinking. Guess what? He'll help you design that imperfect life because you're now starting to do that. So the summary is your predominant laser precise thought is what eventually manifests in the have world, in the be, do, have. So you have to keep that predominant thought. So you have to substitute and obliterate the counter thoughts, the pushback that your mind does very naturally. Now, why the mind does that, I don't know. It's above my pay grade, but this is how you handle it by the law of thought substitution. So if we were to review be, do, have, law of thought substitution are the fundamentals of manifestation. And it's difficult to do. You could read my book and do it on your own. And some people have written me, but I have found that 80 to 90% of people need a bit of help and supervision to control their thoughts and to go through this. And that's why I started the one-on-one mentoring, because that's very, very helpful. But I only do it one-on-one because you can't do it in a group.
I'm going to come back to how people can access your mentoring program, as well as, recommendations where they can find. Yeah,
you can put that on the bottom of the thing too. Yeah,
most definitely.
Yeah,
I want to go to a quote. Very often at the end, we talk about a quote. Usually I share it with the person, but I just kind of put this together very quickly before we started the interview. Let's rewind back to what you were sharing about decisions. One of my greatest resources of quotes is Ralph Waldo Emerson. And this comes from your book, but I find it very interesting that out of the blue, I chose this quote, and I'd like you to expand on it and maybe, how did he see this? Because it matches what you were saying earlier. So here's the quote, guys. Once you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen.
Amazing quote. And that's exactly right. Now, I don't know how and why he thought of it, and he was a very perceptive poet and author.
Yeah.
But that is a quick, abridged summary of what we just talked about in the manifestation formula. Because conspires mean helps you. And part of my mentoring course is we go through achieving the milestone of, first of all, recognizing there is this intelligent energy. Second of all, recognizing that everything is energy. And third of all, realizing that you have to invite this energy to work with you. It won't bypass you and just do it. Hey, I'm going to come and help John. John hasn't invited me into this universe. Isn't that sort of similar to the Star Trek concept of the non-interference policy? What do they call that?
Yeah.
They don't interfere with civilizations because they don't want to.
That's part of their mandate, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So it's similar that the architect or God, whatever, has his policy because he gave us free will, and we wouldn't grow if it did everything for us. Right?
Is that what we should be doing? We're growing. Is it our lesson, our learning here is to grow like an evolutionary spiritually?
Yeah, we're walking back to our spiritual roots. That's the purpose of reincarnation.
Yeah,
is the challenges and trials and tribulations of the physical universe, and we grow in that way. If something was done for you, why would you reincarnate her? Why would you do anything? I mean, might as well not even get up in the morning if you didn't go through life, right?
Yeah. So, well, I work with a lot of clients that feel that way.
Oh, absolutely. That's called apathy. And the moment somebody hits the low harmonic frequency of apathy, almost nothing can be done. Eventually, apathy unhandled can turn into suicide, as you well know. You know what I mean? Why bother, right? So when you invite the architect, he will conspire. Oops, I said it again. The intelligent energy will conspire and help you achieve that have, be, do, have. What was the first part of the quote again?
Once you make a decision.
There it is. That decision is the be. I am wealthy. I am a successful, and your decision, by the way, can be very detailed. I'm a very successful jazz fusion composer and keyboardist who inspires people all over the world and makes a good living. Let's say that's my B, and I was working with somebody. Once that B, which is the decision, then the next step is to invite the invisible architect and allow it to work its magic, and then thank in advance, that's advanced gratitude, very important, that it has and will be achieved. And there's the whole philosophy. The law of thought substitution is just to keep you on the straight and narrow path, because if you keep allowing doubt to creep in, then the architect goes, he's got doubt. He doesn't even really believe I can help. So I'm not going to
challenge the doubt. If you make a decision and you state it, you have to believe it.
And the way to challenge it is to restate the ideal original decision. I am a jazz musician. No matter what happens in the physical universe, no matter how many rejections you have, doesn't really matter. So that is a great quote that explains it. But then again, that quote alone is very, very hard to apply without the mechanics and understanding, in my opinion.
The interesting thing here, and I have experienced it before, so I no longer read into it, but one could say that and it's true, I didn't discuss this quote with you before, and I don't want to be like the Amazing Kreskin here, but...
It's okay.
Is that a coincidence that I chose that quote? Because we got into a discussion about decision and how the universe conspires, and I had this quote in front of me. So was that a coincidence? Was that a fluke? Was that something that, just happens? Or how would you explain that?
What do you think? We'll throw the question back to you before I answer it. What's your gut tell you?
That we are definitely connected. Everyone's connected, and it's almost like everyone's finding the same website page.
Exactly.
And
we're all connected.
If you're
all
open
one.
to it, if we're open to it, then these things happen. But they're not really coincidences, are they?
They're absolutely not coincidences. I've already disabused myself that that's the case. There isn't
You've
anything
challenged that in the past.
There is. Oh my God! In the beginning, in the end, there isn't anything that happens to you in life that's even an accident.
Really?
If you pay attention and you keep increasing your frequency, magic starts happening. And it's funny you brought that up, because when you asked me about the quote, I was going to interrupt and say, oh, that's a coincidence. I really was. And then I just let you go on. But then you went back and brought it up.
Yeah.
And no, that's exactly the type of thing that happens. And one of the biggest wins that people have when they work with me one-on-one is their lives start to become a series of coincidences. And instead of themselves banging their head against the wall to get things happening, things just start happening. I call it the effortless band, meaning instead of effort and then resisting counter effort coming back and you're struggling in life, things start, oh, wow, that's really cool that happened. Now, what a great way to wake up today. Oh, my God, that happened. Hey, honey, guess who called me today? What? Joe. And guess what he asked me? And next thing you know, all these things start going the right way. And after a while, they start going so right, you go, yeah, that's how things are supposed to go. But they're not necessarily supposed to go that way. You have to spiritually grow towards that so they start happening that way. And that's why you incarnate and over and over and over and over again, like Bill Murray, get to the point where now he's an incredibly better human being and he falls in love and people are loving him and thanking him. Is that all accidental? He earned that by going through the trials and tribulations and realizing what he was and actually walking back towards the being inside that he really is. And that's who we all are. I believe we are all good and we can all lose our way. What's the Star Wars thing? You can still have a lot of power and go down the dark side, right? You know, and that's powerful. But in the end, you're going to short out. Somehow you're going to short out with all these bad deeds and things happening to you and karma and all these other kinds of things. So, yeah, I don't think it's an accident at all.
Do we evolve to the point of perfection and then there's no reincarnation? We don't come back? We're part of?
Remember in the beginning, I explained that a little bit. Yeah, as we move towards the higher and higher frequencies and learn all the lessons and start walking back to who we are, I think there's a point we have a choice. Apparently, we all have a choice whether we come back. You can learn in the afterlife, but the learning in this life, in the physical dimension, is sped up because of the challenges and the frequency and everything. But as you get more and more towards your spiritual roots, you get to a point where you don't have to incarnate into the physical universe to learn these lessons. However, certain beings come back and become avatars, meaning they don't have to come back to learn lessons, but they're coming back to actually help mankind because of their, and these kinds of people, we have, Buddha and all these different types of gurus that come back to help us.
Bodhisattvas in Buddhism, right? They've dedicated many lives to helping other people. Yeah. Gandhi,
name it. It may be blasphemous to say Jesus if you're a complete Christian thinking, but these kinds of people have achieved high levels of spirituality and are coming back to share and, pay it forward. And I don't necessarily just believe that. I think I just have experience for that. That's just, how does Mozart, being a musician, at 7 years old, write his first sonata?
Yeah.
One explanation is, well, he was just blessed. Well, that's the case. We got a pretty strange, funny God, right? Well, John, you're going to have to work your buns off. And Mozart, I'm going to pick you and you're going to be able to do this. And Beethoven, that seems not fair, right? But what if Mozart lived about 500 lifetimes and kept acquiring these abilities? Remember we talked earlier about spirit, mind, body?
Yeah.
Well, if you can recall your abilities, which is the mind, in another lifetime, it's like a software program to the computer. You can plug those abilities into the brain of the body, and now that body has all this adeptness in skills that it didn't have before at 7 years old. That explains it to me more than just this guy was blessed and he's got all this talent.
Right. And dismiss it. Right.
And dismiss, and they've done all kinds of experiments with past lives and people and found out who they were. What's that guy in Sweden? Forget his name, who did a lot of experiments with finding children who remember their past lives and then went out and found where they lived and did all these validations of that. So I know it's true.
Yeah, I've read that too, where there's a young kid. The parents said he's talking about stuff that he shouldn't really know. And he got very specific about his past life, and they found out that, this was related to an actual person. But there would be no way for that young kid.
Yeah, what's that one author? Yeah, that author who does, is very famous, was Michael Newton. He's a therapist who goes back into past life regressions for his therapy. He's written many, many books on it. It's pretty incredible. Somebody that could have a migraine headache that's done all the things that, and it's not going away, goes back 3 lifetimes and finds out that he was decapitated or something. And he's dramatizing this somatic in his present life. And once he reviews what happened, it all gets filed back into where it's supposed to be, and it's not impinging in present time anymore. That stuff makes sense to me.
It makes sense to me, and I think was, this discussion and other discussions have been like this. Like I said, we've talked about NDEs on the show. We've talked about a lot of stuff that could be considered to be mysticism or paranormal or paranormal. But this discussion was incredible in the way that I started asking questions that I have.
That's good.
Not only because we should be asking questions, but very often I'll think about, okay, what does the listener probably think here? But I really appreciate answering the questions.
He might think I'm crazy. I don't know. But I've applied everything we've talked about, and this is why I am paying it forward into my life. And so all the fundamentals that are in my book, I've applied to my life and have created and designed that more perfect life from within. So I'm just paying it forward and sharing things that I know work. And I don't have any failures. If I work one-on-one with somebody, I always start making progress pretty quickly.
And how does someone come to you? And where can we find you to talk about mentorship?
Right. So my main author site is it's very simple. My name, John Novello, author.com. And Novello's Novello, author, johnnovelloauthor.com. From that site, if you surf it, you can get to everything. However, I also have a specific, which can cut to the chase, so you don't have to go through my whole site and find all the stuff, a mentor site, which is go.johnnovelloauthor.com/register. So if they go there, they can see all the success stories of other people that I've worked with and read everything about the program. But more importantly, they click the button that says, I want to check out John Novello's one-on-one mentoring. They put their name and everything in there. That'll bring them to a second site, and there's a 30-minute, very enlightening educational video on the details of the mentor program that's very life-changing unto itself. It's educational. I'm giving some concepts in the 30-minute video. And then if they like what they see, they can fill out an application, because I don't just accept anybody, and then book a slot on my calendar. So I'll wake up today and, all right, 2:00, I got Joe Smith. Okay. And Joe gets on the line. We do a Zoom call and talk about his life and his situations, go through the business and how I work together. And if he wants to start, he can start. That's how it works. Very simple.
And if a listener is interested in getting your book, The Invisible Architect, what is the best way that because sometimes it's not always Amazon, but what would be the best way for someone to grab your book?
Well, my book is in all 4 forms on Amazon. If they type in The Invisible Architect, how to design your life, perfect life from within, it's an audio, hard copy, ebook, and paper. But also, if they go to my author site, of course, johnnovelloauthor.com, they can purchase all of those through the book that way.
Wonderful. if we had 3 hours, I think we could fill it up because, I have a lot of questions. And as someone told me many years ago, keep asking questions. I appreciate you answering our questions today. And once again, thank you so much for coming in the studio, John, and have a great day.
Thank you for a very educational and enlightening video. You were a fantastic host.
So, Rob, pretty far out stuff, eh?
I'm honestly floored.
Yeah.
Well, I really am, and I'll tell you what really hit me.
Okay.
What was that 9/11 story? And
I know.
And wow, I mean, he had a premonition like don't fly that day, and it turned out this is one of the planes that was headed out to I believe Los Angeles. And we all know what happened.
It was the same flight that ended up hitting the towers. So what's up with that, right? I mean, you can't say that's a coincidence, like we're talking about at the beginning of the show, right? There's something, and people do periodically have premonitions. I've had premonitions. So I think everyone has these things,
And not to mention, too, the guy, had a hard life. He lost his first wife, and then
his second wife,
was lost his second wife. But at the same time, it was his second wife where he had this premonition about the flight, and
right, and they just met at that time, which is must have been hard to convince her, trust me, I trust this intelligence. I trust this guy. Well, we can't say guy, right? It's just this thing.
Yeah.
Imagine just meeting someone for the first time and them saying, okay, something bad's going to happen. You shouldn't be doing this. You probably think this guy's woo-boo.
Well, and as he said in the interview too, she says, "Is there something up? Like,
are you getting cold feet?
You getting cold feet? Do you want to see me? Like, or what's going on?" He says, "No, I just got this premonition. Change your flight." So, no, an amazing story, and not to mention too, I forgot. But that song, Boogie Oogie Oogie, yes, from A Taste of Honey. I used to play it on the radio back in my early days, and I loved the song. But it was a disco hit, and of course his work with Donna Summer,
right?
And the list goes on. So Grammy Award winner John Novello on the program today. But no, an amazing story. But I'll tell you, I was really spooked by that 9/11 story.
Yeah. It's just you can't explain that, right? And I have heard other stories about premonitions regarding 9/11 that prevented someone going to work that day or whatever that was. Yeah, it's interesting how when I asked him about mind and body, we started talking about mind, body, spirit, but he was kind of leaning more towards spirit, mind, body, which is really interesting. Like our show
leading with spirit as opposed to
leading with spirit. But it kind of ties in with, remember that one guest that we had a while back that talked about near-death experiences?
Yep.
And that tied in nicely with this. So it's not a topic that we haven't gone into before, but not in this depth regarding being able to induce an out-of-body experience, which apparently is very similar to what's going to happen when we die. We're going to be out of our bodies, turn around and looking at ourselves,
It's it's one of those topics that just sends shivers up my spine.
Yeah, sure makes you think about reality in general, eh?
Yes, and about life, and I know. I'm still shaking. I'm still shaking a little bit.
Do you believe it? Like, do?
Oh yeah, I do. Like I've had those. Let's call them feelings or premonitions, but I've had those in the past. I can't think off the top of my head of any stories, but going back to my son's death, I had I had some premonitions. Something was going to happen, and sure enough, it did. And
you may have had like a bad feeling, prior to it, right?
Yeah, a bad feeling.
Yeah, that's what most people have.
Yeah,
because you're the father, and we hear that a lot. Parents have premonition feelings regarding something bad happening, and it does because they're so connected, right?
And every day I get into the car, I say a little prayer like, get me home safely. One of those things, because sometimes I get these feelings, so I got to keep my eyes open and hope that something doesn't happen. But
well, of all the cabs I've been in, I wish those cab drivers said a prayer to get home safely, because some of them are mad drivers. And I was in the back praying I'd get home safely, but it'd be nice for the cab driver to actually create that for me. But anyway.
Yeah. But nonetheless, like I said, I still got shivers up my spine. I'll tell you, I'll be thinking about this interview all day. Trust me.
Very, very thought-provoking. Thank you to John Novello for being our guest today on MindBody Matters. I have a premonition that next week you and I will be back with a Keep Talking episode. And I think it's going to happen.
I have a premonition. I have a feeling that that's going to happen next week on the show.
Be sure to like and follow us on all social media. And if you like what you hear, hit subscribe, download, and share with your friends. MindBody Matters is a great media production.